Hey everyone, in today's video, I'm going to show you how to build a simple chat application using Flask-SocketIO. So let me just demonstrate it here. I have two windows here. They're both connected to the same server. For one, I'll have my user be Anthony. I'll hit join. For another, the user will be Herbert. I'll hit join. I'll say hello, and we see Herbert hello. On this one, I see Herbert hello. And then if I type in Anthony says hi, we see Anthony, and then Anthony says hi. So each username is associated with a different window because these are separate connections. So this is the simple app that I want to show you for Flask-SocketIO. And I'm sure this will be a good starting point for any app that you're building that has like these real-time connections. And before we get into the app, I just want to say that if you need any help with using Flask-SocketIO or SocketIO on the JavaScript side, you can check out my coaching program at prettyprinter.com/coaching, or you can go to the link in the description below for the coaching. And it's basically a service where I help you one-on-one with your projects so you can get everything done as quickly as possible without spending too much time like searching the internet for answers when, especially for Flask-SocketIO, you're not going to find too many because there's just not that much information about it. So if you want one-on-one help from me, just go to my coaching program and I hope to see you there. So now let's get into building the actual app. To start this project, the first thing I want to show you are the files that I already wrote. So first, I have a virtual environment set up already. It already has Flask installed and Flask-SocketIO. So we won't have to install anything in this video, but of course, if you're following along, you'll have to install those two things. Next, I have the run.py file. It imports the create app function from the chat app package, and then it just calls it and assigns the return value to app so the app can run. Next, I'll go into chat app and I have dunder init. So this defines the create app that I just showed you, instantiates Flask, and it sets debug mode to true, which will be important when it comes to running Flask-SocketIO in development. And I also have a secret key just set to secret. I'm registering this blueprint main, which is defined in this routes.py, and it simply returns a template called index.html. I have this extensions.py, which I'll use in a moment for Flask-SocketIO, but at the moment it is empty. And then finally, I have the index.html, which has some CSS in here, HTML obviously, and I'm going to have JavaScript in here as well. So here's what it looks like. It's just this simple page. I type in a username, hit join, and then when the app is running, I'll see the chat window and all the messages. But for now, just shows this, and I'll write some JavaScript to switch between the two views. And that's it. So let's get started with the Flask-SocketIO stuff. And since I'm in the index.html, the first thing I want to do is bring in the script for Socket.io. So I'll just paste it in here, and it comes from a CDN. So you can get this from the Socket.io website and just uh, paste the script tag in here with the link to the latest version, just like this. And then inside of extensions, I want to import Flask-SocketIO. So for this, I'll just say from Flask_Socket.io, import Socket.io, and then I'll instantiate it. So Socket.io equals Socket.io, just like that. And the reason why I'm doing this is because in most tutorials that I've seen, all the code is in one file. It's in like one app.py file, and that's not really realistic for apps that are even slightly complicated. So I figured in this tutorial, I'll show you how to actually use Socket.io, Flask-SocketIO in the application factory pattern that I have here, where you have multiple files for your entire project. So now that I have this, normally what you would do with an extension is you would go to dunder init, and then you would import from that extensions directory and then do like socketio.init app and then pass in the app. It won't work quite that well because of the events that need to be defined on the socket object. So what I'll do is I'll define a file called events.py. So events.py, this should actually be in the chat app directory. So I'll move it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to import the socket.io object from extensions into events. So from dot extensions import socket.io. So I have that here. And in this file, I'm going to define all of the events for my socket. And then what I'll do in dunder init is I'll import from this events. So the idea is in extensions, like I just have a socket.io object with nothing on it. In events, I'm going to add all the events onto this object. And then in dunder init, I'm going to import that object that already has events. And I'm going to init app here. So I can say from .events import socket.io. And then just down here somewhere, I can say socketio.init app, and then pass in app. Okay, so it's pretty familiar. It's just instead of importing from extensions like you do with almost every other extension, you want to first load the events or listeners onto the socketio object first, and then import from the file or package where that's being done. So I'm just importing from events.py. Okay, so let's go back to events, and I can just close extensions, and under init, I want to work on the simplest possible event that can happen, and that's the connection event. So to do that here, it is similar to defining routes in Flask. I take the socketio object and I put an ampersand before it, and I do socketio dot on. So this is kind of like app dot route or the name of a blueprint dot route, but here it's socketio dot on, and then you name an event. So in this case, connect. So connect is a special event, and the other events are ones that you can come up with yourself. But connect is the special event here, and I can just call this, let's say, handle connect. So all I want to do here is I just want to print client connected, just so we can see, right? So when I run the app and someone connects through the socket connection, it will print client connected. Next, what I want to do is I want to actually connect from a client in the JavaScript. So I'll go back to my index.html, and remember I loaded the JavaScript file for socketio. And I can just go down to the bottom and I can start creating a section for the JavaScript. Of course, you can put this in a separate file for JavaScript, but for here, I'll just put it in the script section. So just like on the server side, I need some kind of socketio object. So here, I'll just make it a constant and I'll call this socket. And what I need to do here is I need to connect. So you just use the IO function, and if you use it by itself like this, everything works. So I'll just do this, and I'll run the app, and then later I'll come back and modify this so it works a little better for our purposes, but I'll show you this first. So before I can run this, I need to make sure that socketio is running properly. So if I go to my run.py, I'll be running the app, but I won't be running the socket part. So I want to run the socket part. So to do that, I need to import the socketio object from my chat app package. And then what I want to do here is I want to say socketio.run app, just like that. So when I call this run.py, it will run using socketio. And that's because it's setting up like a different type of connection. And I see here web transport not available. Install simple WebSocket for improved performance. You can install different things to actually transport. So you know what? I'll install something called Eventlet. You don't necessarily need this. There are different versions of it. And I'll go more into this when I have the video on deploying this to a server. But for now, you can use Eventlet. And let me just call run.py. And it's going to look the same mostly, but over here, we're going to see like a number and then WSGI. So that's how you know the socket stuff is working. So now I'll just go to my page and reload. And we see here client connected, right? So it's printing client connected because that's what I have in my events file, client connected. And the reason why this happens is because in here, this IO will connect to the URL that's passed here. And if you don't pass in a URL, it will connect to the same server that generated this page here. So that's why it connects to the same Flask app. So this isn't what I wanted to do. I don't want it to connect automatically because that makes it a little harder to write the following code like after this. So what I'll do is I'll pass in some configuration information to this. So you pass in an object, and the key that I want to add is auto connect, and I can set that to false and then save that. So now when I refresh the page, we don't get a client connected, right? I still have one client connected. I don't have two because it's no longer auto connecting. And if you want to connect after you do it like that, you just do socket.connect. And now let me refresh again. Now we see client connected, right? So we have one here and two here. Just it's kind of hard to see with all the messages, but we have the second instance of client connected. So this isn't where it's going to be. I just want to demonstrate that you can connect manually. And the reason why I want to do that is because I want the connection to happen after they put in a username, right? So like they'll land on this page, they'll put in a username, click join, and then they'll connect to the server through the socketio connection. So let's work on that now. So I have this button called join button. So I'll just take that ID And what I'll do is I'll put an event listener on click. So document get element by ID, pass in the ID that I have there, and then add event listener, click, and I'll create the function here. And the first thing I want to do is I want to get the username that they selected. So I can say let username equal, and then document, it should be document, get element by ID, and then the actual text input. So where's that for username? So the ID is just username, and dot value. So this will be assigned the value that the user put into the username input. And then I want to use sockets dot connect. So now that I have a username, I can connect. And then what I can say is after the connection has been created, I want to send this username over to the server. So to do that, I can do socket.on, just like on the server, I have socket on connect. I want to do socket on connect here, and then I'll pass in the function that I want. So an anonymous function. And then inside of the function, I want to call socket.emit, and let's call this user join. And then I want to pass in the username as the second argument. So username. So what I'm doing here with emit is I'm sending a new event over to the server, and the server can listen to this, and it will be able to get the username that the user connected with because it's sending the username to this user join event. So over here, I can say socketio dot on user join, say handle user join. It's going to take in a value. It's going to be the username because that's what I'm sending over. And I simply want to print user, and then this will be F string. So user username joined, right? So F, and that should be it. So let me go ahead and refresh. And now I'll put my name in, Anthony. I'll hit join, go back, and we see user Anthony joined, right? So I'm sending an event from the client over to the server. And this happens only when I click on the button. So I only connect after the user clicks on the button. I get the username, and then I send that over. So like I said at the beginning of the video, I want to hide the username select and the join button and switch to the chat view after they join. So I can do that inside of this event listener as well. So after the connection listener, what I can do is I can grab the chat area, I believe, and display it, and then I'll hide the username area. So let's see, I'm calling the username area landing and the chat area chat. So in here, I can do document get element by ID. Let's do chat first. And I simply want to hide it. So I can say style.display equals none. And then I'll do something similar for the landing. And actually, I did that backwards. So this should be block. I want to display this. And then for the landing, I want to hide it. So get element by ID, landing, style.display equals none. Okay, so that will hide the landing page and it will show the chat. So let's try that. I'll load this again. I'll just put A for the username, hit join, and now it shows the chat window and then the place where I can type in a message. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to work on this part where I can send a message to the server. So as you can probably imagine, it's going to be similar to sending like the username over with user join, except I'm going to send a message. So outside of this event listener, I want to do document get element by ID, and then I want to get the input. So here it's called message, and I want to add an event listener to it. And because I don't have a button here, I'll just do it based off key up. So depending on the key that they select, it will do something. So I'll pass in the function here. And the key that I'm looking for is enter. So basically when it hits enter, it's going to take all the text for the input and send it over to the server. So I can say if event.key is equal to enter, and I should put event in here. So if event.key is equal to enter, I want to grab the message text. So I can say just message equals document.get element by ID, and then message. So same one, and just get the value. And then I want to emit this. So socket.emit, instead of emitting user join, I can emit like new message, and then I can pass in the actual message here. So message. And then I just want to set the message input to be empty. So I can do document get element by ID message dot value is equal to an empty string to make it go away. And then on the server, I can handle that pretty easily. So I'll go over to events. I'll do socket.io on a new message and then handle new message. It's going to take in the message and I'll print this for now. So print new message. So let's give this a shot. I'll reload the page. I'll create a username, hit join. This is the first message and I'll hit enter, and enter doesn't work. So let's see what happens. I'll go to my console. I'll hit enter again. Actually, I see it's working. It's just not setting the value back to an empty string. So let's see, get element by ID, message value. Oh, I put 2 equal signs instead of 1. So that's a minor thing. So I'll just try this again. We'll do Anthony. And then this is the second message. Enter. Okay, so it goes away. It sends over to the server and we see new message. This is the second message. So what I want to do with this message now is I want to kind of reflect it back to all the clients. So I can go to events, and instead of just printing, what I can do is I can emit. So I need to import emit from Flask-SocketIO. So from Flask_socket.io, import emit. And I'm going to send an event called message, or how about chat to make it a little more clear? Chat. And I want to send, let's call this a dictionary. So you can send either like a string or you can send a dictionary, which will be an object in JavaScript. So for now, I'm just going to send the message and later I'm going to send the username. But for now, I'll just send the message that came in. So message. And the way to send this to all connected clients is to use broadcast equals true. So this will receive a message from one client and then it will broadcast it to all the clients. And then if I go to index.html, as you can imagine, I need another listener and I can just put it down here. So I have socket on and then chat. And then I'll have a function. This function is going to take in an object. So I'll call this data here. And what I want to do is I just want to append it to the chat area. So in the chat area, I have this unordered list and I'll append some list items to this. So let's say UL. I'll say let UL equal document.get element by ID. And what did I call this? Chat messages. And then I'll create an li element. So let li equal document.create elements. And I want to create a list item element. And I want to append, so append child, so the actual text of the li element. I want to create a text node. So document create text node. And the text is going to be the message. So data is an object, and I can access the message by doing the square brackets and message, just like that. So I'm appending a text node with the message in it to the list item, and then I can append the list item to the unordered list. So append child and then li, just like that. And depending on how many messages I have, I'll just fix the scroll. So I can say ul.scroll top equals ul.scroll height. And this is just so if I have like 100 messages, it will jump to the bottom where like the most recent messages every time a new one comes in. So if they scroll to the top, it will jump back down to the bottom. But you don't necessarily need this for it to work. So let's give this a shot now. If I go here and I'll just put in a username, hit join, and I'll just type in hello. I typed hello and I see hello here. So that's exactly what I want. And let me open up a new one. I'll use my last name, Herbert. So hi there. And we see hi there is in this one and it's in this one right here. So these two windows are two different connections and they can talk to each other. And we see it there. So now the last thing I want to do is I want to associate usernames with these messages, right? Because right now it's just I have these two windows and they put in a username, but that username information is lost. So let's retrieve it. Let's go back to events. And the first place where we get the username is in this handle user join here. So the first thing I'll do is I'll create like a global object for users. So users equals this. And this works well for like a small application. In a real application, you may want to use something like Redis to keep your global information. But for our purposes in this video, we can keep it really simple and just have a dictionary here that's global. And what I want to do is I want to create an entry in this dictionary. So user join here. I want to create an entry, users, and I'll use the username. So whatever the username is will be the key to this dictionary. And the values to this dictionary, I want to be their session ID. So the session ID is going to be on the request object from Flask. So I can say from Flask import request. And then here I can do requests.sid. So SID is the session ID for the connection. So each connection has a unique session ID. So what I'm doing is I'm associating the username with the session ID. And then later I'll be able to pass this username by using the session ID and emitting not only the message, but the username. So let's save that. And before we emit, let's create a username variable. So username equals, let's say none. So I'll loop over all the keys. So I can say for user in users, if users of user, so the user is the key, is equal to request.session_id, I want to set the username equal to user. So this should have a colon. So the reason why I'm doing this here is because this is independent of this. So imagine I have like 5 users connected. A new message will come in addition to the message text, I'm going to have the session that sent the message. I want to know the user associated with that session, so I have to do this here loop. It's kind of ugly because of the dictionary that I'm using, but the idea is I'm just looking in the dictionary for the user who has the matching ID. And then I'm setting the username to be that. And then in here in the emit, I can do username. So it sends it to the front end. And then I can go over to index.html. And in addition to the message, I can do like data username and then plus colon and then plus the actual message. So let's give this a shot and I'll save this. I'll close both and I'll join with Anthony here. Join. Hello. So now we see Anthony, hello. I'll join here as Herbert and I'll do, hey. We see Herbert, hey. And then Herbert, hey here, hi, and hi. Okay, so let me just put a space here so it looks better. But that's the basic idea. And of course, you can chat as much as you want. Hello. And we see it's associated with the user automatically because it's looking for the session ID on that user. So there's so much you can do in an app like this, but I wanted to keep this video somewhat short. So other things you can do is you can have like a user system where instead of associating usernames with a session ID, you would instead have users in your database and then you can associate multiple connections with one user. So like if one user has multiple windows open, all of those connections work under the same user. Another thing you can do is you can save the messages to the database. So when you refresh the page, you have like a chat history. There are so many different things you can do, but like I said, I wanted to keep this simple. I'll probably make more videos with Flask-SocketIO in the future, so I'll use some more complicated examples to kind of show you what you can do with it. But that's all I wanted to cover in this video. So if you have any questions about anything I've done here, feel free to leave a comment down below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you have subscribed to my channel already, please subscribe. So thank you for watching, and I will talk to you next time.